We're really excited for you to listen to this episode with Amaury Piedra. David, what was some of your favorite things from this episode?
Yeah, well, I think, look, when you're a property based in Orlando, to create a destination in a destination and their concept of keeping guests on property. And I thought it was amazing. And you just, and just talking to him, it was how fast our numbers were outdated. We said 140 million in renovations. And he said, oh, we're up to 160 or 170.
Yeah,
So obviously it's working and they're continuing to put money into it. And it's somewhere where I think you and I both were like, man, we got to get down there.
absolutely. And, right now experiences are everything in hospitality and hotel stays, and just him, creating this zombie dodgeball virtual reality, the sports bar they open, keeping that revenue in house. And I love how he talked about the transition. He started there when it was one property and now it's a completely different one. So he did an awesome job with that. But enjoy the episode. This is a really fun one.
Welcome to The Modern Hotelier. Both hosts were honored as top 100 influential people in hospitality. We're bringing you interviews with industry experts, thought leaders, and innovators who are shaping the future of hospitality. Whether you're a seasoned hotel professional or just stepping into the industry, our goal is to provide you with insights, knowledge, and trends that will empower you, the modern hotelier. Welcome to The Modern Hotelier. I'm your host, David Malilly.
I'm your co-host, Steve Karen.
And I'm the producer, John Boomhofer.
This episode is brought to you by GAIN, Growth Advisors International Network. Travel and hospitality startups, scale-ups, and even enterprise businesses often struggle to identify and employ the best executives to ensure future growth. Many companies cannot commit financially to top-tier leaders in our vertical industry, if they can find them at all. If they find them and have the financial means to hire directly, those relationships often do not work out, and the replacement costs in time and money are crippling. Hiring a consultant comes with its own risk. They tend to be lone wolves, transactional, overly focused on finding their next gig, and often have no experience with the travel and hospitality industry. A different approach alleviates these challenges, offering top-tier talent as advisors within a travel and hospitality hub, where businesses innovate and grow by easily identifying and engaging multidisciplinary executives from our industry. Introducing GAIN, Growth Advisors International Network. To learn more about GAIN, visit gainadvisors.com.
Steve, who do we have on the program today?
Yeah, David. Today we have on Amaury Piedra. Amaury is the managing director of Caribe Royale. Amaury has over 25 years of sales and operations experience leading 4-diamond lifestyle hotels, convention hotels, and multi-unit complexes in the U.S. and Caribbean, including properties for Wyndham and Starwood. Welcome to the show, Amaury.
Thank you, Steve and David. Pleasure being here. Thanks for taking the time to put me on.
Our pleasure. So we're going to go through 3 sections. We're going to go through a quick lightning round, go over your background, then get into your career, and then ask you some industry questions. Sound good?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, here we go. What was your first job?
Valet parking.
Wow. What's your favorite city?
Miami, where I grew up.
Got it. What's the best piece of advice you've received?
Many times, keep your mouth shut and listen, and you learn a lot that way.
You could trade places with somebody for a day. Who would you trade places with?
Jeff Bezos. I think it would be interesting to just see how that whole Amazon beast was built and how it operates.
What's on your bucket list?
To have one of our fighters. We have a little side hustle with where we manage some fighters, some professional fighters, and to have one win a world title. We're close.
That'd be cool. Do you have a secret talent that nobody knows about?
At one point in my life, I played a sport called highlight. I don't know if you remember that, but I played professional highlight in my late teens, early 20s.
If you had your own late night talk show, who would the first guest be?
Oh, wow. I think at this point, I'd have to say Donald Trump right now.
Yeah, I could feel that coming.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. If you had a time machine, you can either go into the future or in the past. Which way are you going and what year do you want to go to?
I tend to use the past just to learn from it. But, I think it would be great to go out, not a long time, but 5-10 years, and to see how all this new AI and everything that's coming into our business from a technology standpoint evolves and how our business looks in 10 years.
That's great. That's great. So now we're going to go on to a little bit more about your personal background. So you were born in New Orleans and then you were raised, like you said, in Southern Florida in Miami. How did that shape you into who you are today?
Miami was a really multicultural city, and my family's originally from Cuba, so I was the first generation born in the U.S. My father, funny enough, my father was a student at Tulane. I was born in New Orleans. I left when I was a year old. I returned to manage the Sheraton New Orleans. My youngest daughter was born in New Orleans, and she left when she was 1 year old. So my daughter and I were both born in New Orleans, and we lived there a combined like 3 years. And yet both of us were born there.
It's the Piedra life cycle.
It's the Piedra, yeah, exactly. The Bayou's us. We're the Cuban Cajuns or something. Miami was a very multicultural city, and where I think it helped was you dealt with people from all over the world. It's more so now, but South Florida was diverse even when I was growing up, and it just exposed you to many different cultures and many different people, and I think that's helped tremendously in the hospitality business. And yeah, I think that was one of the best parts of growing up in that culture. That, and I was forced to learn Spanish at a very early age, and it stuck with me. So I'm perfectly bilingual, and that's also helped in the industry, especially with our associates and whatever.
So you went to Miami-Dade Community College. What was your background before you got into hospitality?
A friend of the family's ran the Sheraton Four Ambassadors back in 1979. Big four-story hotel, big four-tower hotel in Miami. And he got me my first job there parking cars. And I worked there as a valet parker and a bellman throughout high school. And I started going to college, but I left because I was just enamored with the hotel business. And I stopped for 3 years to play professional sports. That was a long time and about 60 pounds ago. But anyway, and as soon as that ended, right back into the hotel business. So I've never had a job in any industry other than hospitality.
That's awesome. So you mentioned this earlier. You're big into boxing. I went on your IMDb page, and there's a couple of shows there. I also saw you.
I have an IMDb page.
I believe so. I found you on there. You have 2 series on there. And I also saw you've promoted over 20 fights at Caribe Royale over the past 2 years. How'd you get into boxing, and what has kind of been your boxing story till now?
You know what? Through a mutual friend, always liked the sport, and even to this day, work out 2 or 3 times a week doing boxing. And a friend of mine got me into the sport, and later on, we were very fortunate to meet some good people that were family friends. And it kind of grew, and we have some very good fighters under contract that are world ranked in their weight classes. And as it applies to Caribe, what we did was, we're an independent hotel, and as we were going through our reimagination, we wanted to gain publicity for the hotel and get the name out there. So we've partnered up with some very big promotional companies, and such as Jake Paul's company, MVP Promotions. Jake will be here next week, in fact.
No way.
And and a Matchroom, Eddie Hearn's company, big in the UK and big in the US. And so we've been nationally televised probably 15 of those 20 times. And not only did it bring locals into the hotel, but it put the hotel on the map from, any of the hotels that do this are the bigger Las Vegas ones. So we became like the Southeast version of that. And so Caribe keeps getting the name out there. So it's been really good for all of us.
That's great. And you were also instrumental in bringing the Super Bowl in 2010 to South Florida. I looked it up. That was the Saints beating the Colts 31-17. Headquarters for that showcasing Fort Lauderdale. Tell us about that process and how you went about that.
Yeah, it was great. The Super Bowl was coming back to South Florida, and the headquarters had always been in Dade County. And the Broward CVB, myself, we got together, and we said, "Hey, why can't we have it in Broward County?" And we went and we met with the NFL, and we pitched them on being in Broward County. And funny enough, we had our Westin hotel was under construction at the time. It was shut down. I'm showing them what it's going to look like, this and that. And somebody, I guess, had enough faith in us to take that leap of faith and to say, yes, we're going to move the headquarters to Broward County, the convention center, the Westin being the headquarters hotel. And it was a big leap of faith because we weren't even open. So we finished all the work at the Westin in November. and in came the NFL in January. I'm sorry, for a 2 week solid period where they took over the entire hotel. So it was a big leap of faith, but it was great for Broward County because I think it was the first time. Frankly, I think it was. I'm not sure it's even happened again in the one or two Super Bowls since. But it was a really great story to have. We did a lot of work putting Fort Lauderdale on the map, the new Fort Lauderdale, and yeah, it was a big win down there because again, all the cameras, all the networks, everything was all focused on Fort Lauderdale. So it was great.
That's great.
And it just goes to show, you partner with the CVB, everybody works together, and you can make anything happen.
That was great. So now we're going to go into your career a little bit, how you got to where you are today. So after the valet, you started out as the director of sales and marketing. Then you became a general manager at the Pickwick Hotel and Lodgian. From there, you moved to a Sheraton property in New Orleans, the Bahamas, then Fort Lauderdale. What did those early days teach you? And can you talk about some of the differences of managing a hotel that's branded versus now you're at Caribe, which is independent?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, I did a lot of hourly jobs on the way up and worked the front office, worked the night audit, worked everything, you worked your way up, right? And eventually, I had some good people that gave me opportunities to slide into my first managerial roles. And many times, I think I look back on it, and I think one of the keys to success for anybody, just like you all, is, you got to take a little risk sometimes. Hey, can you handle blah? Can you handle X project? Absolutely, no problem. I got it. No idea what I was doing, but you work your way through it, and that's how you learn. And a lot of it is being involved, and when there's opportunities to get involved, put in the time to be involved, and you learn a lot that way. When I was really doing rooms division management, I really thought that the future was going to be in revenue management and in sales and marketing. And I really wanted to head in that direction because I felt that it would make me a better general manager if I truly understood the revenue process and the group process and the sales and marketing process. So I got into that and I did it almost 10 years. And then I got my first GM job. Wasn't the best hotel of all time, but it was my first GM job. And from there, I went to Miami, where I ran a place called Mayfair House, which was a 4-diamond hotel in Miami, high-end luxury. I think if you extrapolate the rates from back then to now, it's like a $600 average rate. But where I really caught my break was Starwood was on a big growth mode. And Starwood hired me to be the hotel manager at the Sheraton New Orleans. And that's what kind of put me on the fast track. And that's where I fell in love with the larger convention hotels and larger resorts. The biggest thing between the independent world and the branded world is, it's great because you learn a lot with the brands and a lot of the training that comes with it. And it's great. But in the independent world, it's kind of, you have to make it all happen on your own. So I always tell people that it's not for everybody. If you've got good experience and you've got a solid background and you have an entrepreneurial flair, if you will, and an entrepreneurial mindset, it's the best place to be. Okay, because you're not constrained by anything that a brand has. You create your own brand and you create your own vibe and you make it what you want to make it. There's nothing being forced upon you. If it works, you did it. If it didn't, it's on you as well. And, there's no lines to color within or anything. You have a broad spectrum. And Mike Dominguez from Alhai and myself just did a podcast together talking about the benefits of working with an independent hotel. And we can really do, as long as it's ethical and legal, whatever the customer needs, from a group perspective or whatever you want, we can do it for you. And we have a lot of flexibility that way. So it's a little bit more work because you have to make it happen on your own and you don't get up to bat as many times, for example. Let's say a branded hotel might get 10 leads through their global sales offices and we may get 8 through our representation firm. So we have to make each one of them count. So we have to work a little bit harder, but if you're entrepreneurial and you like that vibe where you get to do your own thing, it's a great place to be. Now I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear that. I was an independent guy before I, got into technology, in New York City, independent hotels. So love to hear that. So you've GM'd some really big properties with a lot of amenities. What are some of the qualities you think for somebody to be able to manage those type of properties, the big boxes?
you got to have the right people. I think the biggest difference between, call it a 200 room hotel and 1,000 or plus, whatever, is you're involved, but you do not have the same amount of time to be involved in the minutia or the smaller details. So you have to, you're supervising and providing leadership and really looking further out than you typically do. And having the right team, having the right executive team is the key to success. And I learned that a little bit when I made my first jump into the 1,000+ room category. You manage a little bit differently. And it's all about making sure that those big ships don't deviate from the strategic direction, because a lot of times what happens is if you deviate, it takes a long time to get that ship going in the right direction again. So you have to make sure that the vision is there, that everybody buys in, and that you maintain it. Like, right now, Caribe Royale is we're on a great roll, and our growth has been exponential, and we don't see it stopping. But that's because we're always monitoring where we are. Are we deviating? Is there anything we need to do different? Looking 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years out. And I think that's the biggest thing. You have to be a little bit more of a visionary looking out, and also working hard to maintain the culture among the associates.
You were specifically tapped to lead the major property transformation at Caribe Royale in Orlando. It was a $140 million transformation. What excited you about this job, and how did you approach it?
I was working with a great group called Tavistock and Joe Lewis's group, and we were developing a series of hotels. And I was in charge of developing the Pier 66 project down in Fort Lauderdale. And the pandemic hit, and they decided to put a little bit of a hold on that property. I think it's going to open later this year. And I was fine. I was doing some other work for them. This opportunity came up. And when I drove up to Caribe, I'll be honest, I had never been to Caribe Royale. And I drove up to Caribe and I looked at everything, and I knew people in the Orlando market. And as soon as I looked at it and as soon as I saw what was going on, I saw the potential. To me, it was like, oh my God, this is great. I saw the potential. And our ownership group, Sierra Land, led by Dan Kaplan and Dan Freeberg, we got together, and I guess I kind of laid out a game plan. This is what I think we need to do. Well, this is what I know we need to do. And this is what I believe we're going to be able to become if we do the following. And they agreed, and we took off. And in 2020, we started the work, and it was originally supposed to be about 100 million. Then it became 120. Then it became 140. And we're going to be at about 160 by the time we finished expanding our convention center. And these are not cost overruns. These are just, we kept adding a little bit more to it. And this has been the most fulfilling job I've ever had. We had about 40, 50 associates max when I got here in July of 2020. We now have 1,000. And I've never been prouder of a team, because we were able to reposition the hotel, and we got our 4 Diamond 2 years ahead of schedule. And we've really taken off on the group side, and we all worked on putting kind of the formula, if you will, together, and it's all worked. And it's been the most exciting and emotionally fulfilling job ever, because again, as you mentioned, David, you open up stuff with the brands, and nothing against the brands, but you have a lot of people helping you. We did this on our own. The team and the company did this on our own. And that's why it's been so fulfilling.
Yeah, I was telling the guys before we started, I stayed, she was my girlfriend at the time, now she's my wife, but I stayed at the Caribe Royale, I think in 1998.
We're a very different hotel now.
Yeah, I've gathered that without even being there. But
we kind of called the project internally Caribe 4.0, as we were our president actually came up with that Caribe 4.0 as we were aiming for a 4 Diamond, and it's we've had it 3 years in a row now. We'll continue to have it. We continue to improve, but it's been just a very fulfilling journey.
That's awesome. And what type of benefits do you see moving up from a 3 Diamond to a 4 Diamond?
Oh, it's just it's a world of difference. The hotel used to be 35% group, 65% leisure. And we saw the opportunity to be able to position ourselves against a much higher comp set and flip that to 65%, almost 70% group, 35% leisure. But the only way we're going to be able to do that and get those corporate customers and some of the associations in was to get the 4 Diamond, because that's really what they're shooting for. It's just an upper upper echelon meeting. And with that comes increases in food and beverage. With that comes increases in the banquet spend and just in the ancillary spend around the hotel. And everything that we did, we took our time and we made sure that we could fulfill the expectations of the group customer that we were aspiring to and the leisure customer that we were aspiring to. So it took a lot of planning. We got a lot of feedback from potential stakeholders, such as our representation firms, Alhi, Teneo, and DMI. Make sure that what the customers were looking for is what we were going to put out and put together, not just what we thought. And it's all worked out very well. But the difference is we could not be able to go after some of the groups that we go after, and a lot of the groups that currently work with us if we didn't have that designation.
Absolutely. And you opened a stadium club early this year. Tell us more. It sounds pretty awesome. So David and I are both sports guys. So this sounds like a place we got to go, David. But tell us more about the stadium club and what else you have planned for the rest of the renovations.
Yeah, the stadium club's our baby. You know, we knew we needed an additional fun place for people to gather. And, you know, one of the things that occurred is that we thought our average group size would be about 500. And it's turned out that our average group size is about 700-800. And, you know, while we had a great pool bar and grill, seats about 120. And then we have a great rum bar. We call it the rum bar of Bacardi. That seats about 100. So I saw an opportunity because we were losing some of these folks off property. And we didn't have this fun place that could become the social center or the nightlife center of the hotel. So, you know, we wanted to do a sports bar, but we didn't want to do a regular sports bar. We wanted to do something completely different. It's 80% sports bar. Well, it's about 80% sports bar, 10% Dave and Buster's, and 10% nightclub. So we did a different sports bar. Worked with a company I've worked with before called Street Sense. We started putting it together. It took us about 1.5 years to put this together. Even then, you know, we went through a lot of different iterations of it until we hit upon what we have. It was designed where, if you look at SoFi Stadium in California, so the center is a big oval with massive TV monitors, the latest technology. We spent $3 million just on the audio visual. So the sound system is amazing. Like when we played the halftime show at the Super Bowl and we were full with 500 people in there, it's like you were there. So it's got the sound system of a nightclub with the latest. And there's nothing more advanced than the visual system that we have in there right now. And then we put in simulators because we wanted it to be fun. So we've got 8 state-of-the-art golf simulators that can also do baseball, football, hockey, basketball, zombie dodgeball for those kids that want to play zombie dodgeball. But we wanted to elevate it. Oh, by the way, great light show. Somebody scores a touchdown, like during the Super Bowl, Chiefs scored a touchdown. Here come the red lights with the sound, you know, blah, blah. And we wanted to elevate it. So worked with a couple of chefs that I've worked with before, Chef Janine Booth and Chef Jeff McGinnis, Top Chef alumni. And I said, hey, create an elevated chef-driven sports bar menu. And that's exactly what they did. So people give us rave reviews. Let's put it this way. We opened up January 9th, and we're well ahead of expectations. Not only financial expectations, but just expectations in general. Young, energetic associate base. You know, we positioned it, hey, we have to position this like an independent that just happens to be in the hotel. And that's a vibe in there. You know, people go in there and go, I don't even feel like you're in the hotel anymore. You walked into something else. And that's kind of what we wanted to achieve. And the groups love it. You know, they love to buy out the space. It's 2 stories. They love to buy out the space and do events. And we're actually going to expand it. Now we're going to add an outdoor area, which will seat another 120. So it'll have capacity for 600. Of course, every time I say that, the chefs, they go, oh my God, what is he doing to us? But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. And it's funny because over 12 inquiries have come in from people wanting to franchise. Are you going to open up more of these? Are there franchising opportunities? Hey, I was there. I'm from Indianapolis. I was there with a group. Are there franchising opportunities? So it's really amazing. That's something we may explore in the future. You know, we're still getting the whole formula down, but it's been a ton of fun and there's nothing like it in Orlando. And we've had groups from other hotels where the DMCs have brought them over as part of offsite activities. And it's really new revenue for the hotel because a lot of these folks were going off site or they were doing something else, and now we're keeping them in. So it's been really fun.
All right. Well, you sold us.
Yeah.
We'll be there. Well, that was great. Now we're going to go into more industry thoughts. You've went through quite a few changes at Caribe Royale. So you went into the pandemic as one property and pretty much emerged as a different property. We've talked about the renovation, but can you tell us the story and any advice you have for hoteliers that might be going through a heavy lift of a transformation or renovation?
First of all, I want to thank our owners because they believed in the vision. And, I saw an opportunity. Unfortunately, a lot of people got furloughed. That was the term back then. A lot of people got furloughed. A lot of great people got furloughed. And frankly, it gave us an opportunity to handpick and put together what is, I consider, the best team in Central Florida, from culinary to our event management team to, anywhere in the hotel. And we hired people probably before we needed to hire them by a good 6, 7, 8 months. But that investment paid off because we were able to be in a great position when we came out of the pandemic to hit the ground running. So, never forget to invest in human capital. People talk about the renovation aspect and the physical aspect, but the human capital is just as important as the physical aspect. And, we just factored it into the overall cost. And, funny, they would get calls back from their former employers, not that I'm going to name them. Hey, listen, we want you to come back now. I know, you let me go if you remember, now it's a year and a half later and I like it here. So it's interesting. You got to stay the course, right? And if you believe in what you're doing, you got to stay the course and not deviate. And our company sold a hotel in California to be able to finish the work here. And that's why we were ready when the pandemic ended. We were in a great position to hit the ground running, and we got a faster head start than if we would have started the work towards the end of the pandemic, like many did, and then tried to move forward. So it's been great from that perspective. But the biggest thing is, you got to keep your eye. I mean, we had project managers here working with us for us. You got to keep your eye on making sure that those cost overruns don't happen, and not deviate from your original vision. And, you got to prioritize. And that's the reality of what needs to happen when and prioritize. There's always things that need to happen, and everybody's, oh, we need this, we need this, we need this. Okay, but how does that impact our original vision of what we're trying to get to? And is it really a need or is it a want, and how that's going to impact either the customer or the guest experience? And, there was a lot of things that we said, hey, we'll focus on that later. Let's get this done now because this is more important. And we've come back and done some of that. But you got to keep an intense eye and intense focus on the vision and making sure you get there.
That's great. So as you shifted from, more group from leisure, what were some of the aspects that factored into how you approached the kind of reimagination of your meeting spaces as you transformed into the more of a group hotel?
Well, we needed more space, number one, because we had about 170,000 square feet, and that's great. But we have 1,337 keys, and without a brand that puts in, call it 20% of your leisure rooms, we needed more. So we went for a 50,000 square foot ballroom that we built, which is the Palms Ballroom. We felt that was the right size to be able to capture these larger groups, and we kind of laid out the space. Okay, if we have a group of 1,000, hey, meet, feed, breakouts, we kind of had to put the puzzle together, if you will, and get some stakeholder input. And that's how we move forward in that. In addition, one of the biggest pieces was the IT piece, because all of a sudden you have these higher end groups coming in and their demand on the bandwidth on everything audio visual related is on a whole nother level. And so we spend millions on the infrastructure that people will never see, but we will never be able to, we would have never have been able to handle the groups that we have in now if we did not invest in that infrastructure of IT and then the cabling. And we almost had to start from scratch in that. And, it's always something that everybody's always behind the 8 ball on because technology changes so fast. but that was just as important as you can have this ballroom, but if you can't have 1,000 people and they're using multiple devices and the presentations and the audio visual and all that, it's not going to do you any good. So there was a lot of work done on that as well, and also on the culinary aspect. One thing that we wanted to do was set ourselves apart in the culinary aspect, and we wanted to serve restaurant quality food in a banquet setting, and that's what our executive chef and our banquet sous chef were tasked with creating. And they've done a phenomenal job. I got to say, really humbled by David Hackett and Michael Santacroce and what they've been able to accomplish. And that also put us on the map with our rep firms where they're, hey, we get great reviews on your food. It's amazing. People say it's great. And of course, that builds the confidence because that's one of the big things that people remember. Assuming everybody has great rooms, we have great suites. So it's already a differentiator. But that food and beverage experience, whatever, really sets you apart.
I love that. And you mentioned this already about how, as you went through COVID, you were hiring and not laying off. And I feel like that has to build a good foundation for culture, since, that plays such an important role in not only hotels, but any other business. Can you tell us about the culture at Caribe Royale and, how you've worked to establish such a great culture?
Yeah, everybody always says we try to create a family atmosphere, but sometimes you say it, sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. I was very fortunate that a couple of folks that we've known each other for more than 20 years and worked together for more than 12 of those 20 were here at one of the top performing hotels for one of the branded companies in Orlando. And, we always had a great rapport and we were very close and we saw each other's kids grow up. And we brought those two individuals on in revenue management and sales and director of sales. And they're familiar with each other and they're familiar with me and whatnot. Same thing with our director of finance that came from South Florida. Same thing with our director of security. Same thing with our executive chef. So we had this familiarity. And I think that helped us hit the ground running because the team knew each other. Now, they also know the culture that we try to create a culture of inclusion and a culture where everybody's important. That filtered down because I think the executive committee, 7 of the 12, 8 of the 12, we've known each other or worked together before or know each other from what have you. So that then helps filter it down to the department heads and filter it down to the associates. And we're all very involved. Okay. So that's the key. You have to stay involved. You have to spend time with the teams. You have to spend time with the associates. You can't forget. We were just did an orientation today, for example. And, you got to let us know. If you don't have the tools to do your job, we cannot expect you to take care of the customer. That's on us. So please let us know. And I share my cell number with everybody, all the associates. It's important to me. And that's one of the most fun parts of the job, spending time with them, because I remember when I was there, general manager never spent any time with me back then. He was too busy doing whatever it is he was doing. So it's important, and just a simple, hi, how are you? How's it going for you today? That 30-second interaction means a lot. And the other thing is, we spend a lot on recognition. We do a lot on the recognition piece, and we do the right thing for our associates. And sometimes we go beyond. We know that if sometimes things happen and they need help, and it could be a personal issue, and as opposed to other companies of ones I've worked with that you can't do something because it sets a precedent for 1,000 hotels, we will do the right thing and help the associate as we can. And they're very appreciative, and that word spreads. And it also helps that when we talked to the team 3 years ago and we said, hey, this is exactly what's going to happen. We're no longer going to be an overflow hotel. We're going to be the hotel that overflows to others. And 3 years later, that's exactly what's happened. And then, they're like, hey, it's incredible. It's exactly what happened. And this is great. And they, our banquet team, and I'll just tell you, they make double what they used to make. And it's life-changing for them. In our fine dining restaurant, Venetian, those folks make double what they used to make. And it's life-changing for them. And, that combined with making sure that we treat them the right way, we have under 20% turnover. Let's put it that way. I can tell you that. We have under 20% turnover last year, which is great. And, one of the biggest things people always ask me, what worries you going forward? Or not worries me, what's one of the things? Maintaining the culture as we continue to go forward. And I'm big on that. So we need to maintain that, because many times, David, I'm sure you've seen it, where you lose that. And if we have an opportunity to save $1,000 or spend 1,000 and do the right thing for somebody, we'll spend 1,000. And that comes from the top down. Our corporate team, hey, by the way, we did our ownership team. By the way, there was an associate with this problem. We took care of him. Oh my God, that's the right thing to do. Great. I'm glad you did. Because that family atmosphere starts from the top down as well.
So, I guess right now I want to get some of your advice. So, guest needs, their preferences, technology, everything's changing. You personally or the hotel, how do you guys stay ahead of the curves and try to identify what's coming and what you need to do on property?
Yeah, number one, I think that no matter what technology does, there's always a human element. And, in some places, an automatic check-in where you don't see anybody and you go straight to a room, and then you check out and you've yet to have one human interaction. That can work in a lot of places, I guess, depending. But I'm a big believer in human interaction, and that a smile and a hello goes a long way. So I don't think you'll ever see that here. We stay on top of trends from many different areas. Each member of the EC really stays on top of trends in their area. Like, we know we needed to do an app. So we needed to do a property app because it's a big place. We got to get information in customers' hands. And what's the best way to get information in customers' hands? Well, they're here, they have the app, they have the property map, they can request whatever they want through the app, they can make dinner reservations, they can do all sorts of stuff. So we spent about a year and a half working on that and rolled it out. And that was something important, because how do we communicate with the customers once they're here? And our IT director is really good at kind of being a dreamer at times and staying well ahead of the curve. We're always listening to the guest. We ask from a group perspective. I get together with every meeting planner that comes on the property, and either during a site inspection and during the time they're here. What can we do different? What are we missing? Is there anything that can work for you? Is there anything that you need to see? And we got, that's where a lot of the info comes from. Luckily, it's hasn't been, oh my God, you're missing this, this, and that. It's all been positive with some tweaks here or there. We needed a different way of handling packages, for example. That came from a meeting planner. We took the ball, ran with it, and corrected that. I think the biggest thing is staying on top of trends that are valuable, because a lot of times people are rolling out stuff, and is it truly valuable to the customer, right? Is it truly bringing a value to the customer? Or is it just to put a PR piece out? Hey, we've now unveiled the following, right? And hey, it happens, right? So I think that's one of the big things: the voice of the customer, the voice of the customer, the voice of the customer. Do we really think that's an issue? And does the guest think that's an issue? Because if the guest is saying one thing, that's who we got to listen to. That's the customer. So it's, that not only influences our tech decisions as we go forward, but a lot of times our menus, our offerings in the guest rooms. I remember when we first started, we still had the individual amenities. People started talking more about the bulk amenities. Hey, we like the book. We changed the whole thing. Bulk amenities. Now we don't hear about it anymore because it's what guests wanted. That's kind of how we do it.
That's awesome. So we have been asking you questions this whole time. Now it's time to turn the tables. So you get to ask David and I a question, since we've been asking you the whole time.
Well, David, what trends are you seeing in the hotel industry? I mean, what do you see in the next 2 or 3 years? Could be in any area. I mean, it could be anything from revenue management, which has become as complex as ever. You need an MIT degree, but it's any area.
Yeah. So right now, for me, on a personal note, and the company I'm running, we've transitioned from a revenue management platform to a commercial strategy platform, and I believe we're the only company that's really making that effort rather than just talking about it. And what I mean by commercial strategy platform is that we're leveraging all this great data and AI that flows through a revenue management platform and serving it up to sales and marketing in a way that they can digest it and use it. Because a lot of times, the revenue managers are in a silo. They're the numbers guys. They want to look at it a certain way. Marketing wants to look at it a certain way, and sales wants to look at it a certain way. So that's where I see things are heading. And then, this, you brought it up. I had run an app several years ago, ran an app company. I think you said it perfectly, and I'm not saying that because you're on the show, but giving the guest what they want. So this notion of a guest uses Uber to get to the airport, their American Airlines or Delta, whatever app, and then they get to a hotel and all of a sudden they're allergic to apps and they don't want to use it. And that's just not true. And I think a lot of times, you said it great. If you can combine the technology with the personal side, that's what's going to be key.
We get over 3,000, what's the term I'm looking for? Interactions.
Download.
To download. Well, yeah, but even interactions of either asking for, hey, can I get an extra pillow, or making a dining reservation or whatever. I think the last time I looked, it was 3,100 transactions or interactions, whatever you want to call it, last month in the month of March. So it's great. Steve, what are you hearing from a food and beverage perspective? I mean, where do you see, you talk to a lot of people, where do you see food and beverage and hotels heading?
That's kind of what I was thinking about when I talked to your hotel. I think guests now, they're not just booking hotel rooms, right? Like to your point, they were coming on site and then they were leaving because they wanted to go do, whether that's activities, dining somewhere else. People want to book an experience now. They want to come to a hotel and stay there and go to that, sports bar, but it has great food, right? And I think food and beverage, food is the universal language that everybody speaks, right? So I think more people are diving into exactly what you're doing, increasing their food and beverage, making it a unique experience. So when you ask somebody, hey, how is Caribe Royale? Oh, the hotel rooms are great. But you know what was awesome? The restaurant and the food there. It blew me away that a hotel in Orlando would have this great of food. So I think the food and beverage is incorporated into the full guest experience now of staying on premise or, having these great restaurants right where you're staying. So
yeah, I agree with your point in the experiences. People want to have fun. They want something different. And if you can provide that, I think you're in a good place. And, people forget sometimes in a transactional world, we're here to provide experiences for them. And if you can do that, I think you come out on the winning side.
Absolutely. Well, that was great. Good questions. Our producer, John, has been listening the whole time. So to end this episode, he's going to ask you one final question before we sign off here.
Taking the property to like that next level and having the vision to be the 4 diamond. And you said you had to get a lot of like stakeholder input and do all that. And I imagine it's not just property and the amenities that go into that status, but it's also the staff and the service that is provided. So I'm curious about like, how do you instill that vision of, hey, we're here and we're going to be here, instilling that vision with the staff?
Sure. I'm a big sports fan, just like the gentleman. And, you look at it almost like a football team and you're, I'm not going to say the hotel was a losing football team, but let's say you were an 8-8 team. Okay, so this is great. We're going to take this 8-8 team and this is what we're going to do. These are the steps. And we laid it out. These are the steps that we have to take in each of the areas to be able to become a 17-game season now? So a 12-5 or a 14-3 team. And the first thing was getting alignment with our ownership group. They were great. They were great about it. Hey, we love the vision. Go for it, right? And then they just turned us loose. So executive committee came first. This is what we're going to do. And everybody agree. Yeah, great. Now we come down and we rolled it all out. I mean, we literally told the hourly staff, department heads, hey, these are going to be the steps. And this is the work that we're going to have to do to get there. Because we had to write brand standards. We had to write all new service standards, not just for every area. We had to write service standards for arrival. We had to write service standards for check-in. We had to write service standards for the restaurants. We had to, and then not just write it and create them, but implement them. And a whole new service culture training. And we had some people that helped us with it. There's some people from our past that helped us with it. And then we had to roll it out to, at the time, I think we rolled it out in about 500 associates the first time we rolled out 2 weeks of service culture training to everybody. But I'm a big believer in sharing information. Because if people know and feel that they're part of, I know it may sound hokey, but if they feel that they're part of it and that they're in the know and that they understand what's going on, they're more apt to buy into it. And that's exactly what we did. But there was a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, that whole service culture piece, rolling that out, every guest contact associate went through 2 weeks of training, before we really debuted as the new Caribe Royale. And it was every touch point anywhere in the hotel. Nobody got less than 1 week, even if you were in the back of house, because you never know when that person's going to run into a guest. And then it was everything from every uniform in every area to every touch point. So, I look back on it, maybe I minimize it a little bit, but I tell you, there was 3 years that went by like a blur as construction's happening at the same time and everything. But the biggest thing is to keep the staff informed. And we spend a lot of time. That's a biggie for me. I'm probably pretty much of a pain in the rear with that, but keeping them informed and making sure that they know what's going on. And we bring in interpreters when we do our all associate rallies. We have a large Hispanic. I mean, I could do it in Spanish, but that's not fair to everybody. So we bring in a translator and we get headphones and they can all listen to it in Spanish on headphones. We do the same thing for our Creole speaking Haitian associates. We bring in an interpreter and they're listening to it on headphones. And they're getting it because as I'm talking and it's being interpreted, you look out in the crowd and you see the nods up and down. And again, I think that the more we keep them informed and, the more that way, when we ask them to, hey, make sure you do this a certain way, that it happens because they understand the why. It's not just somebody's idea. It's why we're doing and how everyone, including them, benefits from. And it takes work. I'm not going to lie. It takes work. You got to put time into it. It takes work. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. It takes work. But, these big hotels, especially, it's like a little city of 1,000+ people. And, you really want to do it right, you got to put in the work and the passion behind it.
That was great. Thank you. So that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier. This is where you get to plug away, let people know how they can find out more about the Caribe Royale, how they can connect with you. So go ahead and plug away.
Caribe, www.cariberoyale.com. You can also find us on social media. We've really positioned the hotel as one of the top hotels in Orlando and Central Florida, one of the top convention hotels in the state. And it's, not only that, it's, from a leisure standpoint, we've got a great location, a lot of great amenities on site from fishing in our lakes that we stock to bicycling to our water slides to everything going on. Great fitness facility. So there's a lot of fun things to do on site. It's always great to see the families fishing in the lake, especially mothers and daughters or fathers and sons. So it's really cool. And you'll be taken care of by a great group of associates, as we call them, that always have a smile on their face and really are very genuine in the service they provide. And you guys got to come down for one of the events, either one of the boxing events or we're going to be starting a musical series next year. So let me know when you want to come and you will be taken care of here.
No, we will be there. It's a deal. All right. Well, thank you so much. That does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier. Whether you're watching or listening, we thank you.
No, thank you all.
You made it to the end of The Modern Hotelier. Thanks for listening. The Modern Hotelier is produced by Make More Media. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you know a guest or sponsor that would be a good fit, feel free to email us at hello@themodernhotelier.com. If you'd like to get some Modern Hotelier merch, click the merch button on modernhotelier.com or click the link below. Thanks and have a great day.